something to say. I got something to say. Listen to this. Welcome to Drunk on Knowledge.
Hey.
I'm who am I? Andrew. I'm Andrew, and this is my beautiful co-host, Angeline Cruz.
That's me.
We're here today. We're talking about some pretty intense, heavy stuff. Cultural appropriation. Who wants it? Who should be afraid of it? What is it? So
before we jump into it, I think we should do our cheers.
Yeah, let's do that.
I want to cheers to all of those people working at the Puyallup Fair this year.
Ooh, cheers to them.
We just went to the Puyallup Fair. Hold on, I'm going to drink.
Also, cheers to any minorities out there. But what about the fair people?
You mean like cultural minorities?
Yeah.
Or like
underage
people?
That's minors.
Oh.
You learn something new every day. Anyways, what about the fair people?
I feel like that would be a tough job. Well, not tough, but like
Annoying.
It would be a very annoying job.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
like
shout out to you guys. Cheers to you. Looking into cultural appropriation, we wanted to talk about this just because, I wanted to talk about it because I didn't even know what it was until we started doing research. I had a loose idea of what it was, but not I didn't understand it fully.
I understood what it was, but the reason why I felt like we led into this is because we were looking at the list of topics or like ideas that we have for the show, and we're like, what should we do this week? And cultural appropriation landed, and we were like, there's a lot that we could learn researching cultural appropriation.
For sure.
And I feel like this is true for everyone. Cultural appropriation is one of those topics that you have to really think about it to understand it. And
it's super hard to understand.
And to just like make sure that you're okay being with other people and making sure that like you're checking yourself.
Yeah, definitely.
It's one of those topics that make you think.
And it's not something that you only have to check on yourself if you're white. Like that's something that I thought, but it's for everybody. And I think one of the big reasons why it's so hard to understand and hard to define is because it's so new. Like it was hard to get information on the history of it.
Was it?
It actually kind of was.
I thought you said there was a lot of history.
No. I said there's not a lot of history.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, no, it just like the last 20 years, maybe even 10, 20 years.
From when I was doing my research, I got the idea that I feel like this has been going on for a very long time.
Oh, yeah.
But minorities finally were like,
yeah, they started
stupid.
Speaking up, for sure.
What the fuck? And it's just like, we need to speak up. And this is why social media is so awesome, is because it gave them a platform. It gives everyone a platform to say what they want to say. I mean, and that's seriously even a negative part of social media.
Yeah, it definitely can be. But with people saying what they want to say, I would love to say the definition, if you don't mind.
Oh, yeah. Please give us a nice book definition.
Well, it's not the like Webster's definition, but the definition I wrote down is cultural appropriation is when a dominant culture takes part of a minority culture without paying it proper respect.
That's a pretty good one.
What did you write? I know you probably wrote like the actual Webster's.
No, I didn't really write down a definition.
Well, you got it in your head. She memorized it.
Yeah, but that's pretty much the consensus that I...
Yeah, that's kind of what I got too. I wanted to write my own
is that
definition.
Your own?
Yeah.
Wow, look at you coming up with your own word definition.
I'm original or whatever. It's fine. anyways, with that in mind, the dominant cultures taking parts or, you know, little segments of another smaller culture, having that in mind, let's dive into the history of it. So, like I said, it was super hard trying to define history on it, but
That's interesting.
eventually I found some stuff. It like I had to dig through certain people's personal articles that they wrote. I had to dig through um, different like websites and book stuff. So basically, in Kathleen Ashley's The Cultural Process of Appropriation, written in 2002 for Duke University Press, she dives into a lot of history on the subject. Looking at the Latin roots for the word appropriate, we have appropriare, to make one's own, with what she calls a combination of the Latin words ad, meaning rendering to, and appropriare, own or personal. I didn't find that super helpful, but I mean, it's a little helpful, kind of understanding the word a little bit better. But she does shed some light on history as far back as 1978. Like I said, it just started 20 years ago. But in 78, there was a piece written by Edward Said called Orientalism, which is a book where, a book in which Edward talks about Orientalism. It's defined as the West's patronizing representations of Middle Eastern and Asian cultures. Think of any movies or TV shows like the Jet Li movies, Aladdin, Mulan. They're just for entertainment and are not culturally accurate. In those days, in the 70s, before Edward Said's book, cultural appropriation was literally just a whisper. Like the word hadn't come up in literature yet. And it was referred to as influence. So like, even if it was a dominant culture taking from a minority, it was just called influence. Like if you had it just anything that's going on today, it would just be like, oh, that culture was influenced by this culture, yada yada yada. But Orientalism was one of the first books to call out that type of, quote, influence for having a motivation to gain power, which is another little snippet of the definition of cultural appropriation.
To gain power?
To gain power, yes. So
I've never heard that before.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. So, like...
Do you have an example?
Give me an example of cultural appropriation, and I'll tell you how it helped the dominant culture gain more power.
Cornrows.
So, cornrows, let's say, with that, like, it was in black culture to have cornrows, and the dominant culture, white people, would have said, you know, that's for ghetto people, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But then once cultural appropriation happens, it's you now have power over that fashion. You know what I mean?
Oh, I see. Okay.
There you go. Okay. And that's true for everything from like bindis to the food that certain cultures make and all that stuff.
Okay. So when I think of cultural appropriation and examples, I don't think of the whole power grab part. Like, I don't feel like that's part of people's motives. Maybe, but like not usually no. I don't feel.
It's not like it's not a conscious motive.
Okay, I see.
It's more of like a subconscious motive. Excuse me. But like one example of historical cultural appropriation that came up was with Jesus. So like it goes that far back. I forgot who said it, but well, it wasn't like Jesus. It was like a few years later, you know, after he died and stuff.
Okay.
I forgot who said it, but one group of Christians, let's call them Roman Catholics, depicted Jesus as an emperor. And when the next largest group came into power, we'll call them Protestants, they depicted him similarly, but more as a deity than just an emperor. I thought that was pretty interesting.
Did they not think of him before like that?
They didn't depict him before like that. It's just like the way that they depicted him in art. That was culturally appropriated from, in this case, the Roman Catholics. And that happens a lot throughout history. Like when white people began making art about Jesus, they made him white. You know? But it's still like taking from the culture of Christianity, ancient Christianity.
I see that more as a power grab than anything. Yeah, that's like an example
of a power grab. And I mean, this stuff has been happening for like years. Oh my gosh. Like if you think like when I was talking to Will today, my coworker, and I was talking about Spain coming and conquering Mexico and conquering, all these countries, and the amount of culture they must have picked up from all these places, or influence that they must have picked up, or cultural appropriation that they must have done. It's really interesting because, like, that happens with.
I haven't even ever thought about that.
There was another word that just came up. It's a settler society. That happens with any settler society. It's like.
Yeah, because you have to stay there, and then you're like,
exactly.
Cook me food, or anything like that.
Exactly. So. Yeah, that was about all the history I could find on it. There was like a couple more. That's pretty
cool though. Like
couple more instances in literature that it came up, but.
Yeah, I never even thought about those examples. So that's pretty cool. For the examples I thought of for cultural appropriation, they're way more recent. And one of them is.
Me too.
Miley Cyrus. So like, she has been a big one that people have targeted about being culturally insensitive.
Duh. Yeah. Her and Taylor Swift too.
Also Katy Perry, Beyonce has been called out.
Yeah.
So for Miley Cyrus, the one that was really bad for me was using bindis. Are they pronounced bindis?
I pronounce them bindi. I've heard it pronounced bindi.
Okay, I'm going to have to research that later.
Why, did you hear someone say bindi or something?
No, I just want to make sure I'm saying it right.
Oh, okay. I'm pretty sure it's bindi, but
because if we're talking about cultural appropriation, I don't want to be saying it wrong.
Duh. Yeah, okay.
So like her using bindis to like okay, so in the picture, Miley Cyrus is wearing a series of bindis across her forehead. Like it starts in the middle, the biggest one is in the middle, and then it like arcs.
Over her eyebrows.
I've
seen the picture.
Yeah, and it's like celebrating Pride Month, and they're all different colors and whatnot. And she has like a basket of flowers. I don't know if you remember that, but yeah, that picture. That's like a big one because bindis in Hindu culture is like a big thing.
Yeah,
it's really
supposed to protect you from like demons and stuff.
And it's just part of their culture that she just like wanted to celebrate Pride Month with.
Yeah. So in that case, you're appropriating two cultures, the gay culture and the Hindu culture.
How are you appropriating? Oh, yeah, she's
going to Pride and you're straight. You.
Okay.
Oh, that was funny. Do you have any other examples?
I also have.
Oh, we should go back and forth.
Yeah, you should.
Speaking of Katy Perry, yes, she did have a geisha performance. I think that we both saw.
Yeah.
But in the This Is How We Do music video in 2013, she had cornrows. And she didn't know that. She didn't even know that was bad. Kourtney Kardashian had them too in 2018, and Kylie Jenner on more than one occasion. So that's 3 white women having cornrows, and there's been more. Like Vanessa Hudgens had box braids. Just like
the cornrow thing.
The cornrow thing just like runs deep.
Yeah.
My
Was
nose
that
was
your
itchy. Oh yeah, that was mine. Now you go.
appropriation in food? So the reason why I wanted to talk about this one is because I'm a foodie. I love food,
Same.
and I feel like food is one of the biggest cultural exchanges that could happen. Like when I think about traveling and immersing myself in different cultures,
You think
I
about eating their food.
I think a lot about eating their food.
Dude, same.
And so you brought up the whole point about what was it,
Settler societies.
settler societies, and how I brought up, oh, and they were eating their food, and then when they go back home, they're gonna be like, oh, I'm gonna cook this like great thing I tried here, and then it's gonna get popular there.
Exactly.
So I never even thought about it at that point. So it's funny that I wrote this down.
Interesting.
But I was thinking about, whenever you go to those festivals and whatnot, there's these white people cooking tacos and nachos and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Or like, stuff like that. That was like the example that popped up into my head because I've seen that a lot. And it's just like appropriation in food.
Yeah, that is a huge example of appropriation in food. But what's interesting is, yes, tacos traditionally, tamales, enchiladas, like all that stuff is of Mexican tradition. But if we look at nachos and certain
nachos.
types of tacos, that's more of an American thing. But it has been culturally appropriated. Nachos would have been cultural appropriation as well.
That was just a loose example. There's like
I just think that's so
examples,
interesting. Like, wow, I never would have thought nachos were like culturally appropriated.
At least like tacos. Because is nachos...
It is. It's
I
like
really
an
don't know.
indirect thing, but it's like what you were talking about. Like, I tried this cool spice on my meat, and it tasted really great. Let me go and put it in this dish with these cool tortilla chips that I tried at the same place, and see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. But could you argue that that's cultural appreciation? You're pulling inspiration from that culture.
Actually, you know what? You're right.
And
We'll save that for the debate section.
No, that actually is really good for talking about where to draw the line between appreciation and appropriation.
That is true.
So.
But getting back to our examples.
Oh, yeah, you still have more examples. I still have one more, too.
Model Carly Kloss from Victoria's Secret on a fashion runway look featuring a Native American headdress in 2012. And then there's bindis worn incorrectly by Selena Gomez, Beyonce, and countless others.
Yeah. But yeah, the Carly Ross one, right? That's her last name? What's her name? I just know her first name is Carly with an I.
Carly Kloss.
Okay, so I thought that one was really bad. Like, when I saw that, I was like,
dude,
ooh.
Same. And it was already in 2012. Like, that's not that long ago.
That was 6 years ago.
That's not that long. 6 years is not that long.
I mean, you're right. But
if cultural appropriation has been a thing for the past 10 to 20 years,
true.
6 isn't long.
But it's just like she was wearing lingerie and wearing like a traditional, or like it's not traditional, like they just probably made it themselves.
It was culturally inaccurate. And
she
was wearing it as a lingerie. Like, what would you even call that?
It was a fashion show, like for Victoria's Secret.
I don't even know. Bad Victoria's Secret.
Bad.
You cut that out.
You quit it. My last example is chopsticks in the hair.
I don't get that. I think why? Like, I don't know.
Because it's part of a culture that's not white people, and then they were like, I'm just going to wear chopsticks in my hair to like celebrate Asian culture. That was like the first thing. Who
You
wore
know
them?
what?
Emma
Actually,
Roberts.
I can see that. I definitely can see that.
Emma Roberts wore them in her hair and was like, "Yeah, Asian culture." And it was like, "Girl, do you even know why you're wearing those?" And
See,
first off, it's not chopsticks that people or like Asian cultures wear in their hair.
it's like actual.
It's called hair sticks, and they're like ornaments
Yeah.
and stuff. And in Asian cultures, they usually wear them to like ward off evil spirits. And even in the old dynasties in Asia, they wore them as like an honor. Like only higher ups could wear
I did
them.
not know that.
Yeah, so that's a little bit of information
In history.
in history.
I love history so much. Speaking of history, personal history, I actually didn't start hearing about cultural appropriation until recently, like
Same.
in high school. It's only been through like huge media attention and conversations that I've learned like what it is and why it's so bad. My parents taught me to respect people's cultures, so I never really have had to worry about it. But people who are less educated or less concerned with other people's cultures are definitely getting caught up like more and more and more.
Yeah. And I think the whole thing about appreciation versus appropriation is the whole respect and giving or like knowing what's going on, you know?
Yeah. It was actually the other day, like last week, Etta Hunkin, shout out if you're listening, but she tweeted there was a bunch of college age guys at a fraternity that were dressed as islanders, but like really wrong. Like they had like a really crappy grass skirt on and like a really crappy grass crown.
Oh God.
And they were like screaming like illegible like crap that was supposed to sound like Hawaiian or something.
They just made it up.
I think so, yeah.
That's annoying.
Yeah. She was so mad. It was funny.
I'd be mad too.
Go
off, Etta.
But yeah, what about your personal history on it?
The first time I heard about cultural appropriation was like a video talking about cultural appropriation in costumes, Halloween costumes.
Oh yeah.
So that was the first time I heard about it, and like the Native American costumes that we see, and the hula girl, and the the Rastafari dreads and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that was the first time I heard about it, and I always hear it in the media and whatnot, but I was always like, okay, that makes sense. Go off, whoever is telling someone to stop being insensitive.
Yep.
But I never really thought about it until researching this. Thought about it in this much depth.
You know what? I didn't either.
So yeah.
But speaking of like drawing the line and what is appreciation, what is appropriation, what say you, beautiful woman? Where do we draw the line? Like, what is right and what is wrong?
So when I was researching this, I was getting a lot of different definitions of cultural appropriation and different people's experiences and whatnot. And the consensus that people come up with is that culture is so fluid. It's changing.
It's messy.
It's deep. It's all of this. And every situation is unique.
True.
Truly, every situation is unique. It matters who is saying it,
how they're saying
it, what they're doing.
Like
there's a lot that goes into it. So there's not really a defined line. Like this is where you're just appreciating and this is where you're appropriating.
Yeah.
There's no real line.
True.
So this chick, she's a professor at, where's she from? Fordham, I think that's how you'll say that. It's a university in New York, and she is the founder and academic director of fashion law. What did I write here? fashion law, you know.
Oh, okay.
So fashion is a big.
Ooh, she's a fashion police.
She literally is a fashion police. Oh my God.
Look at her
doing her fashion police thing. And she's the author of, what is her book? It's something about cultural appropriation.
Oh my God.
I
Get
didn't
your
write
stuff
it down.
together.
I'm sorry.
Awkward silence.
So she has the 3 S's. Oh, wait. Yeah. Oh, I did write down the book.
Wow.
I'm everywhere. I'm sorry. From dominant culture or minority culture, who have been oppressed, disrespected, harmed.
That's the name of the book?
I think so.
Oh my gosh.
I think so. I'm sorry. I should have wrote better notes.
It's fine.
So she came up with the 3 S's to figure out if
Ooh,
you're
helpful.
appropriating.
The 3 S's.
Source, significance, and similarity.
Okay.
So source is all about, okay, are you a dominant person in society or are you a minority? Like, and the culture that you're pulling from, are they minority to you?
I see.
So that is the source. And, you know, and is this culture that is a minority culture, have they been oppressed? Have they been disrespected? Have they been harmed? You know, you think about the specifics on where this culture is placed in society, your society that you're in. Because it's obviously different in America than it is other places.
True.
And then, so similarity. All right, let's go to significance. Let's go in order.
Okay.
That makes sense. Is it a sacred part of their culture?
I see. Okay.
What does it mean to that culture? Is it like out there in the culture being used for money and whatnot? Like, just like what significance does that have in the culture? And then similarity. So if you're pulling inspiration from something and making it your own, making it look different, then, you know, that could be considered appreciation. But it has to be like hella different. But there will still be people that, you know, will be like, you're appropriating our culture, or you're appropriating this culture. But if you're like taking it and copying it, then that's like appropriation as fuck.
If you're copying it without being respectful.
Yeah.
And like accurate.
So the definition that, or the example that pops in my mind for that is, it was a fashion thing. I can't remember the designer, but they pretty much made a line that was trying to respect African cultures, I think. And they were Caucasian models wearing traditional African American looking dresses.
Oh my God.
In Africa. And then like,
wait, they were in Africa and they had white models?
Yeah.
Wow.
And there were village people that were like jumping and stuff.
In like the background or something?
Yeah, like African people.
Wow. The
and
Africans
like
got cast for the background
in
Africa?
That was like the biggest issue with that. It was like, okay, but you couldn't, you know, make any African American models or African models. Yeah, okay. Right. It's all about the 3 S's.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's like kind of where you can draw the line between appreciation and appropriation. Like I said, every situation is different, and the whole thing about like the conversation about where to draw the line, it really is all about thinking about it.
It really is. Like
what I mentioned before.
Yeah.
You just gotta like work through it in your mind and not just take things at face value. You gotta think about it.
Yeah, because otherwise someone's gonna fight you.
Yeah, there's so many different kinds
cornrows.
of people and walks of life in, I would say like in America mostly. I'm trying to think like in my life.
Yeah.
There are so many different cultures and stuff. So it's like we need to make sure that we're all peace, love, and harmony, you know?
Well, I mean,
sure
I think it
getting
has
along.
more to do with respect. Like, if you are respecting someone's culture, you're going to be fine. If you're going around not respecting people's culture, joking about stuff, doing that like Chinese, Japanese, like the chinky eye thing, like you're going to get your ass kicked. Just
Or
plain and
just
simple.
you're being disrespectful. You're being rude.
But at the same time, I have to say America is a melting pot. Like, culture is going to get swapped. It's only okay, though, if you're doing it respectfully.
Yeah.
And now we get into our debates.
Oh, okay. So there's one more thing I want to bring up.
Okay.
This isn't exactly, well, it's not a cultural appropriation, but I wanted to bring up assimilation because assimilation. I keep saying assimilation.
I need to bring up a simulation.
Assimilation.
Yeah.
And appropriation, and a lot of people try and do that reverse racism thing and be like, okay, so white girls can't wear cornrows, but black girls can straighten their hair, and that's not the same thing. That's assimilation.
That's not reverse racism. That's just assimilation.
But like I'm saying, like there's racism and there's reverse racism, and reverse racism isn't real. That's a whole nother topic for.
Yeah, we'll do a whole podcast on that. It's long.
Yeah, that's a whole nother conversation. But assimilation is like survival tactics, and it's not optional. It's a way to blend in with the crowd, especially for minority groups who get torn down and made fun of for being different. So you better stop with all that simulation.
Assimilation.
Shoot, I keep getting that word wrong. You guys know what I mean, right?
Comment below if you know what she means. Oh my gosh.
So yeah, I just thought I should bring that up because that's like another big topic.
That's true. I'm glad that you brought that up.
But yeah, debates, like you were saying.
Okay, yeah, sure. Let's jump right in. Gauges. Are gauges cultural appropriation or not?
I'm going to sound really dumb right now, but where do gauges come from?
Well, technically they come from all over. I mean, if you look at certain tribes in Africa, they have gauges, and they'll go up to different sizes, super big. Sometimes they'll gauge it and then just hang weights from it to make it hang really low. Certain Asian countries, I cannot tell you which ones.
I see.
It's found in a lot of different cultures. I think even some South American cultures have certain types of gauging.
Yeah, I've seen gauges from other places. I just didn't know if it was like one place and where. So,
I didn't do any research on gauges. I just want to know, what do you think?
See, I don't know enough about the history of gauges. So, like, I don't really know. I don't wear them. I know that. Maybe that's why I'm not worried about it.
Probably not. I am, and I was going through my head, like, what can we talk about? Like, what is questionable about, cultural appropriation? And I was just like, gauges are not white people things. Like, I mean, I'm sure that at some point white people have done the whole gauge thing, but like traditionally, it's not a European thing.
Well, so gauges, they have all types of like designs and different types of gauges, and I don't know.
Well, when it first came out, I think the lead singer of Incubus was like one of the first popular people to start doing gauges. People were pretty upset about it.
Wow, really?
Yeah. And I'm going off memory right now, but I remember like people were up in arms about gauges in the early 2000s. And so I would say yes, gauges are cultural appropriation. However, I think also that looking at our three S's source, it is dominant coming from minority. But at the same time, there are some pretty big cultures, like a lot of African tribes, a lot of other people. You know what I mean?
See, that's another thing that gets me, like, I don't know, because it came from not just one culture, but many people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, maybe, no, I don't know. But that's something to think about.
It really is. This whole podcast is something to think about.
Are you going to take out your gauges now?
No.
Wow. Fake friend.
Fake friend.
Fake
No,
friends of the minority group.
I think of it as a cultural exchange. I think it can be viewed as appropriation when you look at the definition. But with as long as gauges have been a thing in America, it has a new culture about it.
I do think it has a new culture about it.
The way that people wear them in America is very different than the way that people wear them in other cultures.
Yeah.
And so I would say it's more of an exchange.
Or like appreciation.
Yeah.
Like, hey, they did that. That's pretty cool. I want to try it.
Yeah, something like that. Because they are
not relatable.
Because they are really, really different. Like, you won't find someone out in those tribes wearing, you know, the spiky kind of gauges, or like really big, elaborate, like, I don't know, shiny ones. But what's your first debate topic?
I have Avril Lavigne and her Hello Kitty video. Even just like, I guess, that song in general, because the beginning of that song, she says like Japanese chants. I don't know what she says, but she says Japanese words. And
is it even real Japanese?
Yeah, I don't even know. I'm sorry. I don't speak Japanese, but she is pretty much in the music video. If you've never seen it, she's like in a Hello Kitty store, some sort of really cute store, and
kawaii.
Yeah. But you know, around Hello Kitty stuff, and there's Asian chicks in the back dancing, and she's wearing like a cute tutu, cupcake tutu, and yeah, it's just weird Avril Lavigne stuff.
Yeah. And
her response was, you know, people were calling her racist and stuff. She said, "Racist? LOL. I love Japanese culture, and I spend half my time in Japan. I flew to Tokyo to shoot this video, specifically for my Japanese fans, with my Japanese label, Japanese choreographers, and a Japanese director in Japan."
Well, I mean, what are you gonna say?
So, yeah, like, is it cultural appropriation at that point? I don't know.
At that point, no. She says in it she did it for her Japanese fans. That means she had someone in mind trying to make art for them based off of their culture. I don't know how accurate or how respectful she was about it. But I think that's where it would come down to, is like, are you respecting it, or are you just kind of making fun of it? Since she rebuked in the way she did, I would say that's a no from me. It's not cultural appropriation.
Yeah, I want to say no, but like, yeah, because like she had Japanese people help her make it, so they were profiting.
They probably wouldn't have like led her astray either. So it was probably culturally accurate if she had Japanese people helping her.
But like, I really don't know. Like, I'm not a big Avril fan. I like, you know, the 3 songs that are popular, and then really, that's about the extent of Avril Lavigne I have. But like, I don't know how much she is into Japanese culture. You know, I don't know how much of an appreciation she has for it. Yeah. So it's one of those. I don't know. What do you have?
Next on my list is food. Can food be culturally appropriated?
Yeah.
I didn't know we were going to talk about it so much.
Yeah, we didn't coordinate that much. But yeah, if other people who aren't part of that culture are selling it, I feel like no matter who you are, because you're profiting from it. Like, if I went to go and like sell tacos and nachos and stuff,
That would not be cultural appropriation because the Latino culture is so much bigger than the Islander culture, or at least the Chamorro culture.
I still would feel wrong about it because I'm taking their culture and profiting from it. I still call that a cultural appropriation. Or actually, shoot, I don't know. That's just bad. That's just bad.
Yeah, that's just bad.
Is there any other way that you could culturally appropriate food?
Putting it into a vending machine.
Yeah, you're stealing it. The idea.
Like if you took Mexican candy, like those spoons with the candy with the spices on it. You know those things?
No, but
or any other Mexican
candy.
Any
Mexican candy.
And you just put it into like a vending machine, because then you're profiting off of it.
Yeah, any profiting off of food from a culture.
Before this, I didn't think food would be able to be culturally appropriated because it's just food in my mind. You know?
That's why I wanted to talk about it as an example, because it's like all you think about is like, oh, it's food. You know how to make Mexican food? That's awesome. You know?
Yeah.
But that's cultural appropriation.
If you're profiting off of it. But if I want to go home and make tacos,
then that's fine. You're not you paid to make those tacos.
See, that's like where it's super hard with food. It's like if I want to make it at home. But I guess when it comes to food, it's whether or not you're profiting.
Also, if you're making it at home and let's say like I made it for you.
Okay.
I'm going to be like, "Yo, this is Indian food." For example, I'd be giving the credit to Indian culture, and it's like different. Like if you went to a dinner party and you like showed them this dish and it's like, yeah, I made this up myself, but it's really Thai food, you know?
Oh, okay.
Then that's
so as long as you're giving a
so you're giving credit, or like if you're not profiting from it, you know.
Gotcha.
You know.
Yeah.
My next thing I have is hoop earrings.
Oh my god.
We kind of talked about this last night.
Okay.
And we got into it a little bit.
Hoop earrings were a Latino thing first, or Latina, I guess.
Uh-huh.
So it's like a Latin thing, and then black people culturally appropriated it, and then white people culturally appropriated it from black people. So how many times can it be culturally appropriated before it's not able to be culturally appropriated? Or is it just a continuous thing?
Did it just come from, like, it came from Latin people and then it went to African? Right?
Well, yeah. I mean,
I don't know the history on it.
Okay. I don't know the history either. I didn't research it. Going off of my own intuition, African people came here as slaves. They didn't, like, I don't know if they have, like, hoop earrings in Africa. I mean, I'd really have to research that. But I know that it's like a Latin thing. Like, that's for sure.
Yeah, for sure it came from that.
So I have to assume that it went Latin, African American, white Americans, Asian Americans, every other American.
Yeah, so see, I never thought, like, when I thought about this being cultural appropriation before, I was like, that's ridiculous. It's just hoop earrings.
Yeah.
But I actually thought about what hoop earrings means. And I am Chamorro, and part of our culture is piercing our ears. And we have traditional hoop earrings that are gold, and they're made out of bamboo.
Mm-hmm.
And
well, they look like bamboo.
Yeah, they look like Yeah, they're not made out of bamboo.
Made out of gold. They're made out of bamboo.
Yeah, they look like bamboo. And those are like our hoop earrings. And it's super common to get your ears pierced at a very, very young age.
Mm-hmm.
Like 3 months, you know?
Yeah.
And that's the same in Spanish culture, because I read this article of this chick who she was talking about, you know, her grandma was like, oh my gosh, you don't have your ears pierced yet, you need to get your ears pierced. And the fact that, hoop earrings have been around for our cultures for a long time.
Yeah.
And the fact that it came into white women's hands and it got really popular from white models.
Yeah.
So it didn't even come from Latinas or whoever. Like the trend of it. It was like, oh, these white models are wearing them and they're like the rage and all that. But before, people of minority groups who wore hoop earrings, they were called ghetto for them. And the way that I remember them is they're called hoe hoops. The bigger the hoop, the bigger the hoe. And it's like, where did that come from then?
Yeah.
So it's just like, it makes me think like, I see,
Yeah. I think it was probably dubbed a ghetto accessory, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Because white people didn't wear those. They wore like pearl earrings or,
Yeah, so minority groups wore them.
Thing. And they ended up wearing them, and minority groups unfortunately were pushed into the ghetto. So it was just an association. But I think you're right when it comes to, okay, so here's X amount of years we've been calling them ghetto, but then some designer says, oh, those are cool, let's have white people wear them, and then it comes and it's a huge hit. I think that has to be dubbed cultural appropriation.
And yeah, it sounds ridiculous. Like, they're hoop earrings. Like,
yeah, it's just
get
earrings.
the fuck over it. And like, like a lot of people say that.
But like,
and it's just like, but like, think about it though.
But
you have to think about how minorities feel about that. Just because you're not hurt by it, just because you're not what am I trying to say? Just because you're not offended by it, then like, you can say, get the fuck over it. Like, no.
Got you. But like, I don't know. It's just weird. It's one of those things because it's like, it's just earrings. But at the same time, it did come from a culture. Just like gauges are just gauges, but at the same time, it came from a culture.
Wow, we got real deep about some ear ornaments.
Yeah, it's true. Another interesting debate I wanted to bring up is guns, cannons, gunpowder, fireworks, that kind of a thing, because all of that came from China.
Yeah.
So is that cultural appropriation, or was it a cultural exchange equally between Western and Asian cultures?
This one's hard because it's weapons. And people with weapons are just crazy.
Oh, okay.
Like the whole thing with bombs. Like, who made the first atomic bomb? Like, I'm sorry, I'm super uneducated about America. These weird history things.
No, it's fine. Not everybody knows this stuff.
Yeah, America created the first atomic bomb, and then another culture was like, yo, I want that because America has that, and I'm stressed out that I don't have that because they can just like pull that card on me and I can't pull that card on them. You know? So it's like, it's one of those things where it's like that.
Okay, well, in that case, let's look at fireworks. Because that's something that we can say.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I think so. Because, like, think about how fireworks are in American culture. Ooh, 4th of July. Let's light up the whole city with fireworks.
Oh my gosh.
Because
let's traumatize all the animals.
Yeah, that's another topic for another day because I'm already getting heated about that.
It's okay. What's your last debate item? Oh, by the way, fireworks, they are cultural appropriation. What's your next debate?
Miley Cyrus twerking. Is that cultural appropriation?
Wait, okay. If Miley Cyrus twerking is cultural appropriation, then any white woman twerking is cultural appropriation.
Yeah.
And I will say, if any white woman with a big ass is twerking in front of any black man that is straight, they're not going to call cultural appropriation.
Yeah, they're going to be like, hell yeah.
So because Miley Cyrus is not a big ass person, she's getting called out for it. Iggy Azalea never got called out.
Did she not?
Never. I have never heard Iggy Azalea getting called out for cultural appropriation for twerking.
That's so mean. Like,
same thing with
seriously?
Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift has no ass. Got called out.
Wow.
Who else got I mean, I'm sure someone probably said something about Meghan Trainor, but like,
Yes, someone did say something about her, but not about twerking, but about the ways she talks.
oh, she was probably just raised in a ghetto neighborhood.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, girl.
The way you talk, really? No,
Yeah, the way she
that's
talks.
not cultural appropriation. Oh my gosh. Certain things just woo.
But you bring up a good point.
But
and I feel like that's cultural kind of appreciation. Like,
cultural appreciation.
because who the hell, okay, I'm not black, so I can't say anything, but who the hell is gonna go on the dance floor in a club and see a white girl twerking and be like, bitch, that's cultural appropriation, stop? No, it's like, hey, get it, and you start twerking with them. I feel like
Probably,
like
yeah.
it's like that.
Unless you're just
So-
like, you hate white people, like then you
well,
probably would
not
be
just
like,
that.
oh hell no.
But or like, I don't know. I really don't know. So if you're an African American woman and you have something to say about white women twerking, please let us know, because
Say it.
neither of us are African American women. So
True.
but yeah, that's all I have on my debates.
I also have assimilation written down.
Oh yeah, we covered that. A simulation?
A simulation?
We're all just in a simulation. Simulation theory is real. 2018.
2018. A simulation.
Angeline's got a theory.
Uh-oh.
It's not my own theory.
And that's how Angeline sees it.
So to wrap up this whole cultural appropriation
Wrapping up the culture
conversation, how do you feel about it now that we went through the research and we've gone through this podcast?
I don't feel like, excuse me, I just burped. I don't feel like angry anymore, because before it was like, I just felt like white people were just getting attacked, but it's a lot more than that, and it's way more cultures. There's more involved. Like, I was so uneducated that it was just an ignorant outlash, basically. So I've learned what it is. I've learned how to deal with it. I've learned so much, like just
Nice.
taking the time to talk about it. And I wish more people would like talk about it so that everyone could understand it.
Yeah.
So please share this podcast because people need to learn. What about you? What did you learn? How did you feel?
So before doing this podcast, I felt like I had a real what would I say? I had a real good grasp about cultural appropriation.
Oh, okay.
But then I started doing research and I was just like, wait, do I? I'm so confused. Like, things are crazy, the world is crazy and whatnot. And then I came to like this peaceful, like, okay, yeah, I do know what this is all about.
Awesome.
And literally, it's one of those things like everything else. It all starts with conversations. It all just starts with talking to people, dominant groups talking to minority groups talking to dominant groups, and both sides listening.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, cultural appropriation is definitely a good stepping stone. Like, I'm glad that minority groups used social media and
we didn't even
brought
talk
this
about
up.
that. Yeah.
And so it's like, props
to you,
to
minorities,
you all
for
minorities,
raising your voices.
and props to all of those dominant groups who listen.
Mm-hmm.
And tell your other dominant friends that don't want to listen, because we just need to like have conversations. I pointed at Andrew. He's like, what?
Me?
But yeah, it literally is all about having that conversation to minority groups and to you to make sure that you're not cultural appropriating.
And that is what Drunk on Knowledge is about. Conversations. Have those uncomfortable conversations. Talk about it. Have a debate. Have a discourse. Get into it so that you understand it. You comprehend it. You can, explain it to other people.
Yep.
Because knowledge is power. And
knowledge is power, folks. You heard it here first.
Exactly. You gain knowledge from conversation. So
yep.
Keep that in mind. We'll be back next week. We are going to be talking about
we're not going to be really talking. We're going to be like debating. You'll see what we're talking about. That's a little hint,
Okay. So we're giving
dropping
you a hint.
a little hint.
So, yeah, stick around. We'll catch you next time. Thanks for listening, you guys.
Thank you for listening. Goodbye.